We are back, and you're listening to the Critical Hour on Radio Sputnik. I'm Wilmer Leon, joined here by my co-host, Garland Nixon.
Thank you, Wilmer.
The Washington Post reports UN authorizes Kenya-led force for Haiti. Key questions still remain. The UN Security Council yesterday authorized the deployment of a Kenya-led multinational security mission to Haiti to help police beat back the armed gangs that have taken control of large swaths of the crisis-racked Caribbean nation. Again, that's the Washington Post narrative. For insight into this, let's turn to our next guest. He's a journalist and editor at Haiti Liberté, Kim Ives. Kim, as always, welcome back.
Thank you, Wilmer. Thank you, Garland.
So let me deconstruct this a bit and then get your take. The resolution, which was written by the U.S. and Ecuador, came a year after Haitian President Henry appealed for the immediate deployment of an international force to restore order, a divisive request given Haiti's troubled history of destabilizing foreign interventions. So, Kim, a Kenya-led multinational security mission, which I will call an international minstrel show, black faces on U.S. imperialism, to help police beat back the armed gangs. The guns are supplied by U.S. arms makers and paid for by the Haitian elite and allowed into the country by the same. In a crisis-racked Caribbean nation, thanks to U.S. interventionism, don't start nothing, won't be nothing is pretty much what this would get us to. So, Kim, your thoughts on that spin on the narrative?
Well, this is a crazy, crazy moment in every respect. First, the resolution is completely illegal under Kenyan law, as a Kenyan former Chief Justice wrote in Black Agenda report. It violates the Kenyan Constitution. It violates the Haitian Constitution, which says there will be no foreign boots on the ground in Haiti ever. And it violates, too, even the UN Charter, which basically allows foreign peacekeepers in the case of battles between two countries, not between people within a country, not an internal affair. So it's just to maintain international peace and security.
Not in the instance of what, for the sake of discussion, could be considered a civil war.
Exactly.
Okay.
Not in the case of a civil war. You're not supposed to deploy peacekeepers. But all of that is just the beginning, because now this isn't even a peacekeeping mission. This is a mission the U.S. organized to try to put down a revolution in Haiti, because what's happened is you have criminal gangs and you have groups which are organizing their neighborhoods to resist these criminal gangs, and they are too armed. But the U.S. puts them all in one basket, calling them all gangs, even though one is the outlaws, the bad guys, and the other ones are the vigilantes fighting the bad guys. So the people that this force is going after is the vigilantes, the vigilance brigades, who we've talked about on this show, Jimmy Cherizier, the G9, et cetera. And then to make matters even worse is there's no provision for the peacekeepers to go outside of the UN Security Council. What they've done is they've taken the Security Council and they've deputized this force, which is a purely U.S. organized, Blinken has been going around the world trying to get this force together, going to Jamaica, going to CARICOM, going to Canada, which also refused to head it. Finally, the Kenyans stepped up, and I recently got back at the beginning of September from a trip to Haiti, a shoot, and we'll have that report coming out shortly on Redacted. I went with Dan Cohen, and I spoke to a guy who worked with CIA and DIA for many years, for decades, and he told me that the Kenyans, in addition to the $400 million that they're shooting for to cover this, and the U.S. has already anteed up $100 million of it, so a quarter of it, they gave apparently $50 million on the side to the Kenyans. You don't hear any talk about that, but you can kind of guess it when you see Lloyd Austin was there in Nairobi last Monday, signing a 5-year peace deal with Kenya. So basically, Kenya is becoming the new Israel, the new Colombia, the new poodle of Washington, who is going to go help it, as you say, putting the blackface on the U.S.-Canadian intervention. And this is really, and it has to be said that De Laurentiis, the U.S. State Department guy who spoke at the UN, said, we've created, what did he say, a new way of preserving global peace and security. So they're very pleased with their creative process here.
So what does this actual intervention look like to you? Does it look like a violent military intervention? Does it look like similar to before where they were kind of riding around the island, getting women pregnant and spreading disease, or some combination of the two?
Right, yeah, some combination of the two. No, this is going to be a mess. I mean, these Kenyan police are renowned for their brutality and their corruption. And just in the month of July, they killed 35 demonstrators in Kenya who were demonstrating against the same things that Haitians are demonstrating against. IMF imposed austerity measures. They are out in the street against tax hikes. And the idea that now they're going to change in Haiti, a country where they don't speak the language, they don't know the culture, they don't know the people, the terrain. It's going to be even worse, I think, in Haiti. At least in Kenya, they're in their home country. Now they're in a foreign country, what they care. They're going to be even more brutal. So, I think it's going to be a real mess.
Speak a bit about the U.S. using the Global Fragilities Act as its rationale for selling this imperialist attack, and once again, the minstrality of all of this, with Hakeem Jeffries and Kamala Harris going to CARICOM before the CARICOM meeting, twisting arms.
Exactly. Yeah, I think nobody mentions the Global Fragility Act. We've been at Haiti Liberté, the one really pushing this out into the spotlight because we know it's behind the scenes. Their problem in Haiti is they probably had a hand, we suspect, just from all the circumstantial evidence, in the killing of Jovenel Moïse, the president who was murdered in his home on July 7th, 2021. This guy that's in charge now, the de facto prime minister, Dr. Ariel Henry, came to power at the whim of the core group, which is basically the U.S. embassy and all its allied embassies. And so they chose him. They said, okay, you're going in power. Admittedly, Jovenel Moïse had nominated him to be the incoming prime minister, but there was a bit of a power struggle between him and Claude Joseph, who was the acting prime minister at the time. In any case, so what is now happening is that the U.S. is trying to use this fellow, Ariel Henry, to invite them in. So Ariel Henry is not elected, and they need an elected government to invite the U.S. in for the Global Fragility Act, which, just to recap for listeners who might not have heard previous shows, is an effort to put U.S. troops on the ground in Haiti for a period of 10 years, basically to stop the advance, the march of China's Belt and Road Initiative across Latin America and into Haiti, which is one of the last, it's one of 12 countries in the world that recognize Taiwan as the official China instead of the People's Republic of China. So the U.S. is trying to preserve this. So essentially, this whole show that the U.S. is doing with the UN is to get their government elected that they want so it can do the inviting of them in to do the Global Fragility Act.
Speak to Kamala Harris and Hakeem Jeffries going to CARICOM before the CARICOM meeting and twisting arms.
Yes, well, of course, yeah. They're using all the blackface they can to try to, cover what is essentially coming out of Washington. They have tried mightily to get CARICOM to agree to it. Jamaica, who was the most ready, did finally decline the invitation to lead it, and I think they would have preferred Jamaica. They ended up having to go over to Africa and getting the Kenyans. So yes, Kamala Harris and Hakeem Jeffries, they did their best, but they couldn't convince the Caribbean countries. However, it should be said, they will be part of this Kenyan-led force. They just won't be the lead agents of it. So Jamaica's in it. I don't have the list in front of me. Jamaica, Antigua, Barbuda, Bahamas, of course, Barbados, unfortunately, and a few others. But and ironically, it should be said, you guys, that a lot of the countries who have agreed to this, they have their own uprisings in their countries. Countries like Guatemala, Suriname, these countries are facing huge uprisings already in their countries.
We only got about 2 minutes, but if you could update us on the canal crisis on the Massaquoi River at the Dominican border.
Well, this is, again, part of it. Now, it seems that according to a special forces guy that Dan Cohen interviewed on Redacted, that part of the closing of the border that Dominican President Luis Abinader did. He closed the Dominican-Haitian border, which is a huge thing because there's so much commerce going back and forth across, and people going back and forth across the Haitian-Dominican border. So this caused a real disruption, but part of it was basically in concert with this intervention because they're trying to seal in the quote-unquote gang leaders so they can shoot them like fish in a barrel. But in any case, the Haitians are continuing with their construction of the canal, and apparently, I haven't totally confirmed it, but there's quite a bit of footage on social media that the Dominicans have begun to close off part of the river, of the Massaquoi River starts in the Dominican Republic. So they've been building a sort of wall across the river to block it off so that there's no water down at the end of the river where the Haitians canal is. And it should be said again that the Haitians have one canal that they're about to put online, and the Dominicans already have 11 canals that they've built on the Massaquoi River.
Kim Ives, as always, thank you so much for your time. Greatly, greatly appreciate that analysis, and we look forward to having you back.
Thanks so much.
Folks, you are listening to the Critical Hour on Radio Sputnik. I'm Wilmer Leon. I'm joined here by my co-host, Garland Nixon. There's more on the other side. Stay tuned.